You've been following someone else's blueprint so long, you've forgotten what you actually wanted. My guest today, my friend Landon, took 23 courses and 13 years to make his first real dollar online. And it wasn't because he lacked strategy, it was because none of it was actually his. See, the businesses that we're building right now will eventually force us to burn it down or start over if we're not doing it with alignment with ourselves. So you have to center yourself in it. And Landon is an expert in this. And I want to unpack his story, share the takeaways, and allow you to win with this episode. And I want to ask for you before we get into it is if this show has ever shifted your thinking, made a difference in your life or a difference in your business, could you please go leave me your review? It's actually how other entrepreneurs find this show and make their way here. So I appreciate you. Let's get into the episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. If you are listening to this won't matter. If you are watching this, the location is different as I'm figuring out where I'm going to film in the house because the home studio office is set up. But my son has been on bed rest for 7 days. And so if you hear coughing in the background, just send prayers for my son because he got whatever bubonic plague that I just fought for a month and I'm still fighting. And so if it's going around, rest your body, drink your water. And that has nothing to do with today's episode, but I figured I just had to be authentic and share it anyways. And I'm honored. I'm humbled. I'm excited because today we have a brother of mine on the podcast, somebody that I would consider, let me pick a word. I'd consider him a sage. I'd consider him like, I hate to do this, but like the wise wizard who you always want to consult with. And most of the time you don't know he exists, but once you become aware of his existence, you never want him to leave your ecosystem again. I've known this incredible gentleman for quite a few years. And when I say he is a multi-tool, this might be too old of a reference for some of you. He's the MacGyver when it comes to business, and a very interesting seat because he is like the Oz behind the curtain and he has played in it all, done it all, marketing ninja, ads ninja, behind the scenes of business, strategic consulting, everything that I've ever touched in a business, he has as well. And he's someone that I always go to kind of be my keel in the water. I'm like, am I crazy? Am I focusing on the wrong thing? Am I not doing? What am I missing, brother? And he's always there. He's constantly plugged into the deeper lessons that make us successful in business, not the strategies and tactics that everybody gets up in the air about, but really like the why. And the true success, not the fleeting success, not the dopamine hits. And not only for himself, but for every client that he touches. He's kind of my get out of jail free card. He can tell you this, but when I have a client, I'm stuck. I'm like, hey, I need you to get on a call with him. I'm like, hey, can you talk to him? And then I call him and I'm like, what did you hear that I didn't? Because we got to dual hat this thing and go. And so I'm incredibly excited to be joined by my brother, Landon. So Landon, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. That intro is magnificent. Honestly, like I'm listening and I'm like, you should teach a masterclass on introductions. I feel like that would do very, very well. But thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Did things a little differently. I'm usually a big planner, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to trust that today the words are going to come and it's just going to be a good conversation. So super pumped to be here today.
It already is. And if you're listening to this would be the time where I invite you to go find a video of this, because if you've ever wanted to see a masterclass in beards, Landon is your man as well. I always get beard envy, but it's the running joke. I will never, nor will my partner, Kate, ever allow me to get it that long, but I always have envy. And I know the amount of meticulous work you put into that. So he treats business the same. So it's really, really easy. And I'm stoked. And, you know, for people for context as well, I've known you, but for people listening, I've known Landon in so many different contexts, and he's kind of become like one of my get out of jail free cards, like I said. So from paid media to Substack, to writing, to blogging, to strategy, to digital acquisition. I've had him, we've done webinars together. We've done massive paid media. We've helped co-consult coaching businesses. And so your experience is like a breadth of knowledge. And I'm sharing this with everybody just to understand the why of where this comes from. One of the things that I love about you so deeply is that even when people, myself included, are stuck in a strategy or why isn't this working, you have this innate gift to always bring it back to the deeper level of like, but what are we trying to accomplish? why are we trying to accomplish, right? It's this very meticulous scientific approach that like removes the emotion and gets down to like, well, this is a game and there's ways to play this game and win this game. And it's very grounding. And so I want to start with kind of your philosophy on business, right? Because you've been in this game for a long time. You've seen it come and go. You've seen people that have the wrong philosophy and lose. You've seen the people have the wrong philosophy and win, but it was just a temporary win. And then they ended up crashing and burning. And so like, I'd love if you could just like from the heart, like what is your philosophy when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, and why?
It's such a great question. Coming into this year, I spent about 3 months really digging into this question exactly. So it's the perfect segue into things. It was like, why am I doing this? And what mission do I want to lead moving forward? Because when I view business, I really do feel like I come at it from a different perspective than a lot of people. I'm not super hyper focused on money. I am not super hyper focused on what has been traditionally taught in business. I really started to find just this being triggered by all of the ads I would see, all of the programs I was in. You know, I was just did a project for somebody that's on how I made my first dollar, and I was like, when I looked back, I was like, I took 23 courses during like a 2 year span when I was trying to make my first dollar online with a digital course. And now I've been in business for between 18 and 20 years. I have built 9 businesses. I've gone $100,000 in debt with one of them. I have launched probably a dozen courses, programs, masterminds, memberships between myself and my wife. And then I've consulted on so many businesses and seen behind the scenes. So I've played this game of seeing it from every angle possible. And when I approach business now, I really try and, like you were saying, I try and zoom out and I really want to know, like, why are we doing what we're doing? Because at the end of the day, if our business isn't serving the life that we're trying to create, I just don't think that it's worth it.
Mm.
And we get so hyper focused on these things like money or material objects or how people perceive us through the screen on social media. And so often I have these conversations with people and they're like, well, I want to hit this goal. And you like peel it back and you can just see through conversation, everything that they're saying contradicts what they need to do to reach that goal. And then when you ask them why, and they can't answer the question. And it's like, if we don't enjoy what we're doing, if we just finish work to do it all again the next day, if we're burned out, unhappy, what is the point of what we're doing? What's the point of making more money if we're not taking more home? Why do we need to make 10 million when we could actually live a better life off of one? Why do we need to scale when we're unhappy and we're crying behind the scenes? So I've really tried to lean into really trying to lead a movement to change the narrative when it comes to business, because I just don't like the way that it's being taught. I think there's something to be said about slowing down, reassessing things, centering ourselves in our business, not just blindly following somebody else's blueprint, not blindly following what the guru says, because so much of that, especially now, it is just there to persuade us. These marketing messages out there are, I'm seeing more and more, are just almost blatant lies. They're just not true. Like I saw one the other day. It was like, follow this plan and you will have 368,000 followers in 6 months. And I'm like, there is no way you can give that guarantee.
No.
Zero, zero. And I saw there was another one and it was an ad and it was like the $10 million blueprint. And it was like without running ads. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, you're trying to tell me that you've got this magic blueprint to make $10 million without running ads. I'm like, okay, yeah, you could generate those leads if you had a very large audience already, but you hand that over to somebody that's just starting and that person is like, oh, this is what I need. And I have not seen the success and the results from a single program that I take. So when I talk and I'm marketing and I'm working with coaches and creators and writers, I no longer make any claims when it comes to income because I just don't believe in it anymore. I was like, it never worked for me. I was like, it's probably going to take you a lot longer than you think. And at the end of the day, I would rather you prove me wrong and be like, you know what, you told me it was going to take 2 years and I did it in 6 months. I'm like, amazing. I am so happy for you. But the last thing I want to do is tell you you're going to achieve this in 3 months and it takes you 13 years, like it did
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just really try and zoom out and go, like, we need to center ourselves in our business. And that's really the philosophy I take with everything that we do. We can call it alignment. We can call it sovereignty. There's a lot of different terminologies depending on who we are, what we want to do with our business and, the lexicon that we're using. But I really think we need to bring back us in our business
Mm-hmm.
because it's just getting lost in so much of what's being taught out there right now.
Okay. I could give an entire keynote on just your first answer for the rest of this podcast. So for everybody listening, I'm friends with Landon. So like these are the conversations we have and I love this. And I'm gonna flex my restraint tongue. And I just wanna echo a few things that you said before I ask you the next question. Cause number one, and just so everybody laughs at me, you know how Spotify and iTunes, they do like the end of year recap? My Spotify for the podcast, the number one word that I used in 2025, alignment. So pick your lexicon, but yes,
Yeah.
totally fair. And I agree with you on everything that I see. The overnight success of like, oh, well, you have it now. Yeah, it took me 13 years. I think I'm on like 15. And I'm like finally cracking that nut of like identity and alignment or whatever the Landon's word lexicon that you use. And I love this concept of centering yourself in your business, right? Because it's your business. I talk about this. If you're hearing this again, you've heard me talk about this 472 times at least, but Landon is not me, so you'll hear it from him. And so I want to unpack this because we know how the mommy daddy games go. I just deliver other people to resonate the same message. I love this concept of centering yourself in the business, right? Because you nailed this earlier. You're like, oh, the guru said to do it, or George said to follow this strategy, or that's the way he does customer journey. And you end up losing yourself in the business. And that's where it starts to feel out of alignment. That's where you start to have resistance to the actions and behaviors. You like look at the calendar and you're like, okay, I made it through today. And then you like dread looking. You don't look till the next morning. You're like, oh, I got to do it all again tomorrow. That's a symptom of losing your identity, like losing in my opinion, the most valuable asset in your business, which is you, your view, your perspective, and the way that you do things. And so when it comes to centering yourself in the business, I think the core of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of identity, right? You said this earlier, and you said, I spent months sitting with like, why am I doing this? Not like, oh, I watched a YouTube video, wrote something on a journal, and like, there's my why. One of the things that I love and respect about you is like this meticulous approach to discovery and then not having reactions to it. But you're like, I'm going to make sure I'm really clear. And so when you talk about centering yourself in the business, this is for anybody listening. It doesn't matter if you're just getting started. Doesn't matter if you've been doing it for 15 years. Doesn't matter if you have a team of one or a team of 100. I have found there is no finish line to identity. There is a curious pursuit to identity. And so I would just kind of love your thoughts on like identity, centering yourself in the business as the foundation, because it's not a tool or a tactic. It's not I'm going to go write on Substack because somebody said, or I'm going to go launch Instagram reels and do 4 a day every day for 40 days. So I get X. Like it's the come from underneath it. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So when we talk about centering ourselves in our business, I really think for me, it really starts to stem back to a place of agency and a place of autonomy and not outsourcing our self-esteem, our confidence, our strategy to somebody else. Because when we're following what somebody else is doing, we're following the path they took to get to the results that they have and the lifestyle that they have. A lot of times we don't necessarily know what went into what they have. We don't know how they're wired. We don't know what their values are, what their boundaries are. And we also don't know the reality of what they're living. And this is something we see a lot. We see, I can name names. I'm not going to name names. There's been some very large people who have come out and said this recently, but I've seen the same story more times than I care to count, and it really kind of breaks my heart. We see people teaching business strategies, and then 3, 5, 6, 7 years later, they will come out and they will be talking about how they are completely burnt out. They've been incredibly unhappy for the last decade. They're burning their business down. They're going to rebuild everything because now they want to actually be happy in their lives. It's like, why can't we start from that point? Why
Hmm.
can't we center ourselves and go, why are we creating this? I think we have to rediscover what we're actually trying to do. And it's not easy to do. It's not easy to ask ourselves these really difficult questions because we can't just go to AI and be like, why am I actually doing this? And for somebody, it might be like, the best option for you might be to go get a regular 9 to 5 job because of the support it gives you and your family, the routine, the vacation pay, the holidays. This journey of entrepreneurship is really difficult. It's very
Hmm.
glorified on social media, but it's very hard. It's very lonely. There's no certainty. So when we're trying to create this, it's like, let's start by, what do we actually want? What are we trying
Hmm.
to achieve? And then we can start to redefine how we're going to get there instead of blindly following what somebody else is telling us to do. Now, those can give us, kind of contour and direction of things that we might want to try, dabble here and there so that we can slowly find our way. But I think we always need to come back to ourselves and not lose that in what we're doing because it's unique to our values. It's unique to what our boundaries are, the lifestyle we're trying to cultivate. And it's so easy to go, okay, well, this person is doing that. I see it all the time, especially in the coaching world, where the common model is to scale through building teams and to start running more ads and to build a webinar. And then all of a sudden you have all of these people in your program. So you need assistants and assistant coaches and community managers to help run that. And then we need to have sales teams, but then we need somebody to train the sales reps. And all of a sudden, we see people doing millions of dollars in sales, but they're making less than the person that's doing like 12K a month.
Yep.
But they're so caught in, I need to scale. And you're like, but why?
Hmm.
Why do we need to scale? I've sat behind businesses where somebody's making 50K a month, but they're only paying themselves like 7. I'm like, so the person doing $8,000 a month with no expenses is technically making more money than you are, while you have all of this responsibility, this massive overhead of $40,000 a month. And you're like, if you don't hit these numbers, you're going to break. It's like, but what are you like? What do you want to build? It's like, oh, well, I want to have a control over my schedule and I want to do this and that. And it's like, well, the business you're building doesn't afford that. And there's this menu of other options of things that can do that.
Hmm.
We live in this dichotomous world of like, do this, don't do that. I saw one this morning. You don't need more content, just run ads. And I wrote an entire post about it just on my phone. I'm like, why are we saying this? It's like, yes, it works, but also this other thing works. Because I see people that just have content based businesses and their profit margin is 100%, not actually, but like,
Hmm. Close.
and this other person is like doing 10 times the revenue and they are so stressed, burnt out. And I call it like, success is on the surface. It's the person who you perceive to be crushing it. They're talking about their wins, how much money they're making, and they're super good on camera, got a nice backdrop, but behind the scenes when you talk to that person and they're in tears, they have bags under their eyes, they're not happy, they're frustrated with their team, they're worried about how much money they're going to make this month. It's like, that's not the position we want to be in.
Mhm.
So we need to start to go, okay, well, what do we want? What are we trying to create? And then let's start to craft a business about how we're going to get there. This is a very long, a very long-winded response to your question.
No, I actually love it. And I'm gonna break the fourth wall for everybody listening. Even on the rest of this episode, and maybe even go back and listen. I'm gonna tie something together that Landon said very early on that I echoed, which is the only right way to build your business is your way, right? And one of the things that he said, and this is why him and I are brothers, we're bearded, balded brothers, even though I have an inferior beard, is that we share this. Like every client of ours is bespoke. Like every client I work with is like, no, no, what do you want? Like, no, no, this might be my way, but like, how can we make it your way? Are you sure? Are you clear? Do you have the energy and capacity to do this? Like, is this, if I fast forward 3 years, do you want to run a 40-person team? And I actually have a client who said they did, and then we had to unravel the whole business because they didn't like what it was like to run an $8 million a year business, and they went back to being a solopreneur. So when listening to this, my invitation for you listening is to listen to what Landon, and both Landon and I are saying, that resonates with you. Like, what clarity is hitting you? What roadblock are you facing? What resistance? What's coming up of like, man, I've never actually asked myself what I want, or I feel burnt out by my day to day, but I was convinced this was the only way to do it. I'm going to invite you for the rest of this episode to think through it like that. Don't think about like how Landon does it or how George does it, but like what's ringing true for you. Like in that moment, there might be a light bulb that goes off and you're like, yeah, I've been doing my podcast the same way for 7 years because somebody told me to, but I never actually asked myself how I wanted to do it. Like, could I do this differently? Could I look at it differently? Could I pay myself more right now if I reduced expenses here and here? And so that's kind of my invitation. So I love the long answers because it's things to chew on, right? And I think the whole premise of this is like to be reflective and to be
Mm-hmm.
cheesy for everybody listening. You can pick 8 million quotes from history, but like measure twice, cut once. Marine Corps was slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Like you don't want to go into the kitchen and make dinner unless you've checked that you have all the ingredients. And I think you said this very early on in the episode when we were starting, is like most of the things, when we think about ourselves as entrepreneurs, like to be an effective entrepreneur, you have to market. Well, to market, you have to live in this ecosystem that exists where you are not only entrepreneur, you're also the product for other entrepreneurs. And there's all this disingenuous, claimy consumerism that's basically gaslighting you to convince you to become a product of them while you're also trying to build and scale your own. But what's missing in all of that is you. Like, what's your view? What's your perspective? Right? Like, just how I coach clients doesn't work for how somebody else coaches clients, right? Like, how I show up for my clients is different than how Landon shows up for his clients. And the goal is to find you
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
middle of all of that. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. So you answer as long as you want.
Yeah. And I think we share a lot of commonality around that. So much of the conversations we have when somebody comes to us to scale a business is reflected back to them just through discovery and questions and a deep dive. Because what we're trying to figure out is this what they actually want?
Mm-hmm.
So just like you said with your client with the team of 40, I had a recent call. They came to me. They wanted to build a business without any calls. They wanted to sell low ticket programs. And then so we start unpacking this and realize, I'm like, well, in 5 years from now, like, is that what you want to be doing? And they're like, no, I don't like doing that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so what is the part that gets you most excited? And the thing that she said gets her most excited was jumping on these calls and helping people start to like rediscover their value, be able to increase their prices. I'm like, okay, amazing. I'm like, so we keep unpacking it a little bit. And it's like, okay, well, what aspect of you working with, she was working with kind of like writers and health professionals,
Mm.
like what aspect of this gets you really excited? She's like, well, I really love kind of digging into like the messaging part of things. I'm like, well, how do you like doing that? Like, I like jumping on a phone and kind of pulling this out of them. I'm like, okay, but like when we started this conversation, you wanted a business that had no phone calls, selling a product on X. And now we just realized you don't want to do X and you actually want to do phone calls. I'm like, what do you want to be doing? And she's like, I've never thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, when we start to really think about the business we want to be running, sometimes it's completely different than we actually thought. But we never ask ourselves these questions or give ourselves enough time to really sit with it because we see stuff nonstop, thousands of times every single day telling us what we need to do, the lifestyle we should be living. It's why I unfollow so many people. I don't read anything. I just try and create from the heart now because I don't want to be persuaded because I fall into it nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a season of subtraction, and like every 2 days I'm like, I need to get my podcast relaunched. And then I'll talk to someone and they're like, your voice is so soothing when it's on a podcast. And I'm like, oh, I got to get it relaunched. And the next day I'm like, but no, this is going to require me to do all these things, which in this season aren't things that are aligned with what I'm trying to achieve. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to bring it back to ourselves and really dig into those things. And furthermore, what I'm really trying to work with people on is a lot of the strategies being taught are, even if they can work for somebody, it doesn't mean it's going to work for us.
Yep.
And we can't allow ourselves to be gaslit into thinking we are the problem, that it didn't work. Everything can work, but my wife is a psychologist, and these are things that I think about a lot. Is okay, that strategy might work to, let's say, create content every single day. But if we are suffering from depression, like that's probably not going to work, or at least not right now. Or if we're neurodivergent, ADHD, whatever it might be, a lot of those things might not be designed for how we're wired or where we're at in our life, our business, with what's going on. And I think those are all things that we need to take into consideration when we're centering ourselves in our business. It's not just about business strategy, it's what are our boundaries? What are our values? What is the environment that we thrive in?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to be on calls all the time because it really drains me. But there's certain calls that I really do enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
conversations like this. I hate sales calls because I don't like trying to like persuade people to purchase. What I like is just really trying to help people. So when I jump on a sales call, I just treat it like a coaching session.
Yep.
And I'm like, if at the end of this, they think I can help them, awesome. But if I can solve their problem in 30 minutes, I'm just going to solve their problem because they didn't need to hire me in the first place.
Yes.
And that's how we start to craft things to be aligned with us, as opposed to kind of blindly following what we're told. But it's not always this like, oh, well, this is what it is. A lot of times it's this journey, and kind of like you were saying, I think it was actually before we hit record, this is a journey that we're on. There is no destination. It's really trying to embrace the fact that we're just going to be constantly iterating. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not wrong. That's just how this works.
100%. Oh, there's so many things I want to say. Number one is like, to give a tangible example of what Landon's talking about here, is like there are all these things that do work and can work, but the deeper question is like, can it work for you? Because Landon could hand me a running training plan right now that says, hey, you can run a marathon in 12 months. I have zero freaking desire to run a marathon. Could I follow it? Could I achieve it? Could I finish it? Yep, but I'm going to lose my life. I'm not going to have things that I crave. It's not aligned with where I want to go and where I want to be. And so, like, having that awareness for yourself is so, so big. And I can share this personally, as to Landon's point, I've been in this since 2010 or so. And if I could go back, I would have the business that I had in 2018, which is what I'm working back towards building now. And I was like, oh, I got it. I'm making multiple six figures a month. I have a team of 4. This is crushing. I'm traveling all over the world. And then I was like, oh, the guy who teaches scale has to scale. Okay. Then I became locked down by the mechanisms that I installed to scale because I had birds in my ears and ownership in companies. And then all of a sudden, the things that I loved doing got replaced with the things that I had to do. And then I fell into the checkbox system. Back in 2018, there was no website, there was no podcast, there was no social media. It was just me building relationships with people all day. And I was in heaven. And then it all came. Now I love the podcast. I'm keeping the podcast, but I have this and I've spoken this out loud about 100 times in the last month. There's a season in the next year or two where I will not be on social media ever again. I will still be running the business and building the business. And maybe there's a presence, but it's not me. It's somebody posting as me. It's just sharing wholeheartedly because I've gone through this. And so, to what Landon's saying, I want to give you something tangible to take away right now. So, if you're listening to this and you're driving, don't do this. Pause this, come back, or remember these questions. But if you have a pen and paper in front of you, and by the way, pen and paper requirement, don't type it, don't talk it. Give your body and your brain the gift of actually writing it down. I can send you study after study about the power of doing it with pen and paper. But I want you to ask yourself some of these questions, right? Like just make a running list. What are the things that I love to do that I'm good at doing? That's question one. What are the things that I'm good at doing but don't love to do? That's question two. And what are the things that I'm not good at and don't love doing? That's question three. This is not a 5-minute Q&A session. This is I'm going to make a couple of dates with this piece of paper and I'm going to remove myself from my environment. So I'm going to go sit at a coffee shop for a half an hour, no laptop, just pen and paper, and I'm going to sit with this. And then I'm going to come back to it a day later. I'm going to journal before bed. But to tie all this together just from the beginning, I love Landon's concept of you have to center yourself in the business. To center yourself in the business, you have to know who you are in that business. Is this lighting me up? Is this bringing me joy? Right? And there's a couple of ways to do this. That is the easiest way to be in this consistent pursuit of that curiosity of like finding those answers and then starting to build your day or your clarity around those answers, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like it would not serve me right now if I just deleted Instagram again and disappeared off the internet. It's not the best place right now. But it's something that I can work towards by doing less of the things that I'm good at, but I don't enjoy, and then replacing them with more of the things that I'm good at and I do enjoy, which is a lot more sustainable. So I wanted to just give a prac app for everybody listening.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. It requires introspection. Mm-hmm. We have to bring awareness to what we're trying to achieve. But one of the biggest things I see people is there's the financial component. And I think it's incredibly important to set that aside for a moment, because when we're thinking about this, it's not that we're going to make those changes today, but we're trying to create a North Star, an intention of what we're working towards creating. And then that becomes the baby steps that we take to get there. There might be 4 projects that are like for next year, but if you know where you're going, you can start to gradually and incrementally work to get there. I also think it's incredibly important, especially for people coming into the space or just starting, to redefine our perception and understanding of what success is. It's not just 10K a month or 100K a month. It's so much more than that. It's what do you think that's going to actually provide you and why are you trying to get there? Because 10K a month if your expenses are 7 isn't great. 100K a month if your expenses are 72 and that's your now obligation and responsibility is very stressful. We need to understand, or you want to run a community because you heard that MRR is like the North Star and everybody needs that to be successful, because if it's not recurring, you're not an actual entrepreneur. But do you understand that at a low ticket membership, you're going to need 500 or 1,000 members. And at 1,000 members, you're now going to need community managers. You're going to be spending hours a day just responding to comments, customer service complaints. It's like, is that the business you want to create? Is that how you want to spend your days? Because if the answer is no, well, then maybe we don't want to create that model. We want to create this other thing. Mm-hmm. So understanding like you said, those 3 questions. What are your non-negotiables? Do you, like, for me, I don't have an interest right now in selling something high ticket because I'm trying to make more information accessible to people who have been on, you know, the receiving end of some shame-based sales calls for high ticket coaching programs. I have a soft spot for those people because that's me. I'm those
Ditto.
people. Um, so like I craft my business to facilitate that, but then we have to go into the time aspect. It's like I look at kind of constraints for like very loosely crafting kind of like bumper pads for our business model. It's like what profit do we want to be at? What timeline do we want to achieve this in? What are our non-negotiables in terms of like our lifestyle and the business we want to run? So just like we're talking about the membership and the things we want to be doing, what we enjoy doing, and then like what's our reach, and what are we selling, because all of those things are just dials, but sometimes when we turn one, it also turns another one. So if we want to sell low ticket products and we want to do it in a specific, like make a certain amount of money, well, that's going to require a certain size of audience, so that's going to impact the time it takes to get there. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just understanding these things. I have a lot of people that come to me because I'm very anti-hustle now.
Mm-hmm.
I live that game. I've burnt out many times, and there's so many people that are in that same position. They've been posting nonstop and they're just tired of it. It's why so many people have come to Substack, just like myself, when I don't want to have to be a slave to professional photo shoots and video editing and reels and posting 3 times a day and being in my stories. I'm like, if I can write and let the words do my work, that's why I became a writer and I love doing it. But if we want to not hustle and start to subtract, we can't have the expectation that we're going to accomplish something in the same period of time. We have to remove that resentment that's going to come with mismanaged expectations. Like, okay, well, this might take me a little bit longer if I'm not wanting to do those things that that person is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much, like you were saying, self-awareness required to do that. And that exercise of those 3 questions is a beautiful starting point for this. I've had some business partners in the past where I'm just asking them a question. I'm like, what would this look like if this was easy for you? Or like, what would this look like if it was fun? And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be fun or it's going to be super easy, but like his answer was, well, I would wake up and I love writing emails. I would send a couple emails. I'm like, awesome. And then he would do a couple coaching calls. I'm like, so if we want to create a business where that is your primary source of generating revenue is through that and not posting nonstop on social media, okay, well, that's going to require an email list, right? Like, okay, cool. So if we want to build an email list, we have this array of, we can either run paid traffic, we can either build it organically, or we can start to do joint ventures and get in front of other people's audiences. Like you said, you don't want to do organic. Cool. It's not a problem. Well, now we can choose from these other two over here. And it's okay. Well, maybe you can't afford to spend $1,000 a day or $100K a month on ads, but we can start to take the steps to create the business that we do want to be running. And it can change at any time, but exploring these things and going, well, I used to do this and I don't like it anymore. I don't want to be doing sales calls anymore. I don't want to be posting content anymore. That's fine. Like, people overlook things like in person. There's this whole world that's not on the screen, that
Mm-hmm.
people are building $1 million businesses offline. It happens all the time, going to just in-person networking events, go to your like local chamber of commerce or go to a coffee shop and meet somebody. These
Mm-hmm.
like things we just take for granted in the age we live in, but everything can work. And that's what I've seen throughout my business. So it's like, what do we want to be doing? Or maybe at this point, what do you not want to be doing? And how can we just start to take incremental steps to get closer to that?
Mm-hmm. I love this so much. I want to summarize what you said because I think it's really important. Very early on, you're like, being an entrepreneur is a challenge, right? Because there is no existing container. We create it, right? When you go get a 9 to 5, that 9 to 5 gets to dictate the structure of your day. So you genuinely look for something that's aligned with you and what you want to be. But I think that this is the part that I think most people miss, is that when you are an entrepreneur, you create the container, which means you create the rules. There is no, someone says you can't get up and not start your day until 10 a.m. Nobody says you can't take all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Nobody says you can't just do your calls from 4 to 8 p.m. if that's your sweet spot. But I find that when people start something, they end up getting stuck in the groove of it and they forget that they created it in the first place. And you can recreate it. You can change the rules. You can change how you deliver things, but you have to be willing, to Landon's point, be introspective and ask some questions. Like, I have a client who I absolutely love that was doing $200,000 months. And one of the first questions I asked them before they became a client, they were very much venting about like the challenges of $90K a month in overhead and the pressure that came from it. And I was like, well, what would it look like if it was easy for you? And this client broke down in tears, like immediate tears, because it was so grooved in that there was no other way. And so we systematically worked for a year on like what easy looked like. And that team of 20 got reduced to a team of 4. There was a little bit of a revenue dip and then it grew back up. And we ended up creating the same revenue monthly with 16 less people and a whole lot less pressure, like 8-week processes down to a week process, and really, really deep alignment. But you, in order to be willing to set the rules of your field, you have to be willing to ask yourself, what do you want them to look like? And I know for me personally, I've had a lot of people hire me because of the way that they see me do it. But the way that I do it isn't because somebody told me to do it that way. It was like, this is the only thing that feels good. This is how I'm going to do it. And then it felt aligned enough that I could pursue it, and then it worked, right? And you even said this earlier. I will never do a sales call in my life, right? People come on the call and they're like, oh, what's it look like? And I'm like, bro, you haven't even taken me to dinner yet. What are you struggling with? How can I help you? And they're like, what do you mean? And we spend an hour and they're like, you didn't even tell me what you offer. I'm like, I don't even know if you want it. I was like, can you go do this? And like, I want more of this. And like, go put this in. And then I'm here to help you, right? Like, we'll get to a point. But that's the only thing that feels good to me, because I love connecting. I love learning. I love helping. And so I built my business around the go-giver model and the helping model. But nobody goes out like, yeah, I could see 55 people teach that, but like, it has to be true for me. And so I think for everybody listening, like, maybe use this as a break check to check yourself. Like, what are the rules of the field that you build? And do you still want to play by those rules? Right. And maybe you don't. I'm not saying throw them in the trash, but I'm saying be willing to explore, like, what would this look like? Right. I know for me, when I started coaching, I was like, oh, I'll just see you every week on Zoom. But then I didn't like how it felt, because I was on this side, like, what's happening over there? Are they good? Are they going to fire me? And boom. And then I was like, hey, can we add asynchronous communication between this? Like, can you send me a daily check-in, like run ideas by me? And they're like, totally. Now we make more progress, but that wasn't for them. That was for me. And I was like, I want to hear from you. Like, I want to know what's happening, back and forth. But I think that that's the invitation for everybody, is like, you make the container, but you have to be willing to ask yourself, like, what do you want that container to look like? What would it look like if it was easy? Like, how would this bring the best of me out? Right. And I've had clients be like, hey, we need like 3 calls a week. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't. I was like, I have my son. I have tight containers. I have other clients to fit in. I was like, but I can give you one, and I can do asynchronous back and forth because I can do that on my time. And they're like, okay, fine. Love that. And they say yes. Right. But you have to know what that is, and you have to be willing to explore what that is.
Yeah. And, sometimes things just have a way of working out. Like, I think a lot of this journey is just trusting in the process. And for me, a big part of it was like, I just kind of realized that I love the build, I love the journey. So it's so easy to like resent it and be like, why am I not moving faster? And it's like, oh yeah, I like doing this, but we can just make changes. And it's you hit a very good point, and I'm not going to be able to repeat it perfectly, but you said you started to do things and then it happened, but you didn't do it because of you were trying to accomplish that. That's the nuance. That right there is the difference. That's the delta. We can't try and trick ourselves into like, oh, I'm just going to do this, when you really are just trying to get to that same outcome. You can't be like, I'm just going to work less because then I'm going to make more. And it's like, no, you need to work less. That might happen. It might not.
Yes.
You need to accept that.
Yes.
And I think for me, so much of what I work with people on is there's always a compromise. And we must consciously choose.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what I do is I do a lot of things that I know are not the typical marketing playbook, but I accept the compromise. I know that a lot of stuff that I do will not convert as well because I do not make income claims.
Yep.
I'm not going to put artificial urgency on the back end of this launch. So
Yep.
I know that I'm not going to sell as much.
Yep.
I know that I'm not going to sell my community saying I'm going to help you get there with the tools to make $10,000 a month in the next 3 months. So I know it's not going to sell as much. I make that choice because that is aligned with my values. That's centering myself, and also understanding that no, I have not made a single decision in my business based off of money. I have closed down a business that cost me $100,000 in debt. I've walked away from $15,000 a month contracts. I've turned away contracts that would have doubled my income. When I recap how I've made decisions, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not driven by that, where a lot of people are. So if you tell me I'm going to achieve this if I do those things, I'm just not going to do it because that's not what drives me. So I will always present that to people. I'm like, yeah, you could do those things. You could post on 7 platforms, or you could just post on one. There is a compromise that could give you more visibility. We can scale things back. But if that's what you want, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But also, we have to accept the compromise of what that might mean. If you want to post on 7 platforms, it means it's going to take more time or money to do those things. Let's choose.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. What's your capacity right now? Is that even realistic? You don't need to do those things. You know, there was a period of time in my life where I now work about 4 to 6 hours a day, where I was burnt out and I was like, I'm just going to spend the month of January and stop work at 1 p.m. And you know what happened? I got all my work done by 1 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm only going to take calls on Wednesdays. You know what happened when I only booked calls on Wednesdays? I just only booked calls on Wednesdays. I just booked them further out in advance. We get so scared of change because we've invested so much time into doing something a certain way that it is very scary to make changes. And I completely respect that fact. But the longer we go down a road that's out of alignment, the more difficult it becomes to change. And that's the biggest thing is, you know, sometimes it is scary. Sometimes we might have to let a team member go. Sometimes, like, just like you said, you're going to leave some of social media, which is like so scary. What's going to happen to your business? And like, maybe it does affect your business, but that's not bad.
Nope.
Like, there's no morality in this. Like, if that's in alignment, if you would prefer to do these other things, to invest your time in whatever it is, family, relationships, or just simply going on walks instead of being on social media, that is perfectly fine. There's people that love that stuff. We're all different.
Yep.
Some people get so filled up by being on social. I don't know how, but I'm sure they're out there.
It's not
you know
me.
what I mean?
It's not me.
You know what I mean? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think, I want to hit something you said. I think the most important thing is no matter what bucket you're in, you go in eyes wide open. And by eyes wide open, meaning that to every decision you make, there is a benefit and a cost. If that cost is aligned with your values, it's a worthy cost to pay. Just like there's people listening and I still run across them, I still work with clients that are very revenue generated. But only when we have the conversations of like, do you know what this is going to cost you and where this is going to end up? And they can acknowledge them to me from a place of self-awareness. Like, yeah, but I don't have a family right now. I don't have kids right now. I don't have the desire to. This is the only thing that gets me going. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. But we're very aware of what we're doing, right? It's not like, oh, I'm like, to your point, gaslighting myself into, I don't know what I'm doing. This is going to lead somewhere. Like, no, this is where you're going to end up. You're going to end up on your phone 22 hours a day. There is no off button. There is no anything. They're like, yeah, but that's how I am anyways. I'm like, cool. Well, just promise me when you get tired of it, we can rejig this a different way. But that's what they want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the deeper thing, and like even how I started this episode with you, is like, what's the why underneath it? Like, what are the rules of the game? Like, what is it that we're trying to achieve? What is it attached to? Where does it go? Because to your point, we all end up rebuilding our own confirmation biases. The ironic thing about social media for me, and I referenced the 2018 business time, that business was built when I deleted Instagram. I had no backup plan. I had a conversation with God in the jungle of Costa Rica, and he said, give the company away to your friend. And I'm like, do what? And I gave it all away. And then I didn't have a backup plan. And it took about 4 months. And all of a sudden I became a consultant overnight, but I needed to create the space for that to happen. But to your point earlier of Parkinson's law, once I freed that up, it created the constraint of like, okay, what's next? It changed my thinking. It changed where I was spending my time. I still had all this energy to give. And similar to you, that was and you've known me long enough, that was the 2-year period where I made the rule I wasn't allowed to consume anything. I was only allowed to create. And eventually I got sick of not creating anything. So I just started creating. I started speaking. I started writing. I started making videos. And in that process, I realized I don't like writing. I'm not good at it because I get so frustrated because I can see it in my head and I know the point that I want to make, but I can't get it in words. And so now everybody listening, you know why I make videos. I make videos because I can verbally process out loud, but making a video for me is easier than writing. But it was only in like the pursuit of those things that I was able to figure out that that's my strength. And then ironically, what do I love? I love facilitating events. I love doing things in person. I love having coaching calls or podcasts like this because I can verbally process. I can unpack really big ideas. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a point, right? And so it's just like constantly being curious and pursuing like what lights me up, what brings me joy, what does all of that stuff. And I think when we talk about this, there's this reactive thing that happens in business. I find a lot of the times people only make the changes when the container or the business or a circumstance puts pressure or breaks instead of proactively creating that constraint, right? So it's like, I've seen this happen with clients where they're like, oh my God, I have a dream client. They're coming in. It's the most I've ever made. I don't have time in my calendar. I have to make time. I'm going to have to let somebody go. I'm like, well, let's play with like not letting somebody go. What would it look like? And then, 2 months later, they're like, oh my God, I'm doing both. But they needed that external constraint. I know for me, my son's in a private school. 2 years ago, they kicked Fridays off and he was only in school Monday to Thursday. Well, my Fridays were like client call days. And I was like, what am I going to do? There's no way. And now my Fridays are permanently blocked. He's back in school half days, but I don't do any calls on that Friday. But yet I fit all the same and more in that Monday through Thursday through that constraint. And then to your point of there's a cost that's associated. And just so everybody knows, I'm sharing this because I'm giving you tangible examples because none of us are immune to this. I promise you this is the game that you want to play forever. The moment you think you're immune to it, you're going to be in a lot of pain, right? But one of the ways that I built that business to multiple millions a year with no website is I would fly 150 times a year. Well, with no child, easy. Infant, easy. Yes, there was stress on the former marriage, like not ideal. Now that he's 9 and he's my best friend, I do not like being away from him, especially with like split custody. And so I'm like, okay, well, no, I'm not going to come to your event. I'm not going to come network in the audience. Like, can I give the keynote remotely? Ironically, to your previous point, I just started facilitating local business events and I'm running a 5-part workshop. where 40 businesses are in and they're all blue collar businesses. And I'm teaching them how to build efficiency models, processes, and scale. And it's lighting me up. And I'm like, I didn't even know you guys were here. But that wouldn't have unlocked unless I put that constraint in. And I was like, I live here. Of course, I should help businesses that live here. There's so many businesses in this valley. And so when you create that constraint and you align it with your values, what I have found is God rewards you. And he's like, hey, here's an entire canvas you didn't know existed.
Mhm.
Go play with this one. And so I wanted to give some like anecdotal, like just tangible pieces of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. It complements. I'm a little bit more philosophical and wordy, so it's a great balance with how I approach things. But like curiosity is a beautiful thing. Like the everything that I put out, my sole purpose is to stimulate people's thoughts. I want you to think about things differently, and I want you to see that there is another way that you have not considered yet. You can make money differently. You can grow an audience differently if you don't like the way that you're doing. It is always possible if we're willing to just swim through it and just
Mm-hmm.
trust that we can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what I do now, I just take as much imperfect action as I can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wanted to launch a community. So I launched a community. Did I have the best offer, the best sales page, the best launch sequence? No. Did I launch it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that I'm going to figure out the next step and it's going to present itself to me. And I have made so much more progress in the last 2 to 3 years by just doing that. When I watch some of the most intelligent people that I know still during that period of time haven't done a single thing because they're kind of in their own way. They want it to be perfect. They need all of these things in place. And I'm just like, I'm starting to struggle to work with people that are still in that perfectionism. I'm like, let's just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just try it. They're like, well, how do I know what I should sell? I'm like, have you asked somebody what they want?
I had that call
They're
yesterday.
like, they're like, but what do you mean? I'm like, jump on. Like, when's the last time you talked to a customer on a phone or talked to a client on the phone? Like someone that gave you a bad review. Why don't you jump on a phone call with them and get some more information? Like we can figure things out. We just got to be curious enough to do it. And like you took Fridays off. I'm looking at the same thing right now. My wife is not going to be working Fridays. So I'm like, well, maybe I should take Fridays off. Like, I'm sure that I could rework my schedule to be able to take Fridays off. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but if we don't ever challenge that dynamic, like, why are we running our own business if we're going to just put ourselves in this box that we can't control anyways? You know, we might as well just go
1,000%.
work from somebody else. You know,
Yep.
like we can just, I think business should be fun at the
Mm-hmm.
root of it. Because
Mm-hmm.
if it's not fun, we're stressed all the time. Why are we doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like you said, we got to come back to the why. I don't fit the traditional mold. So I'm trying to figure out how to run a business that just truly lights me up. Talking with my therapist, which, you know, I, whether it's therapy, personal development, getting a coach, I think just having somebody to work through things is probably one of the most beneficial things, I think, in entrepreneurship and in life as in general. But one of the things I'm missing right now is connection
Mm-hmm.
and trying to create this list of things that fulfill me because I'm missing connection. So I'm now trying to go, okay, where can I cultivate this? But it's not just remote. I want to try and meet people in person, which is difficult when all my business is in a different country. And things that fulfill me. And I found doing these just kind of like random calls that I do every now and then, I just feel so energized after. So I'm like, how can I bring more of that into my business? Well, maybe every couple of weeks, I just offer to jump on a call with somebody. I've never had somebody turn it down, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that fulfills me. We can color outside the lines when we're creating our own business. We center ourselves in it and realize it can look any way that we like because we're burning the traditional blueprint and we're building our own. And I think
Yes.
that's what I really want to change the narrative in online business and coaching as it is today,
100%.
is trying to empower people to be willing and have the courage to do things differently.
Oh God, I gotta start to land this, but I love this, not but, and I love this because a few things that you said very early on in the podcast, you were like, I consumed 23 courses before I ever made my first dollar. I've said this on the podcast before. If you call me, and I'm just use running again, and you're like, George, I want to run a marathon. And if you're listening to this, I know this is a broken record, and I give you 2 paths to follow. Path A is amazing. I want you to spend the next 12 months watching every running video, running mechanic video, research shoes, but never go run. Or option B is use whatever shoes you have and commit to running for 20 minutes a day, every day for the next 30 days. Which one's going to make you a better runner? It's always going to be option B, because the clarity that you're looking for comes through imperfect action, because that's what unlocks the next adjustment, right? It's the most important piece. And I got asked on a podcast the other day, like, what is your advice for people looking for a coach? Like, what are the red flags? I'm like, I'm going to make this really, really easy for you. All of us need mentors because we need outside perspective to see from the outside of the pill bottle in, which unlocks our clarity, like our divergent thinking, our curiosity. So if you bump up on somebody and they're like, hey, use my model, do it my way, do it X, run to the hills. If they're like, hey, I'm going to help you make yours, I have a framework, but we're going to make it yours, lean into that one wholeheartedly. I promise you. It is the best way to do it, whether it, and I don't care if it's me, that's all I do, right? And it is the worst business move ever. Like, I was on a call yesterday and he's like, we need to pay you. And I was like, why? It's like, we've done 7 calls and you haven't even asked for money yet. And I was like, oh, I forgot. I was just more excited to help you build this app. And I was like, you could do this and this and this. And he's like, okay, well, I'll send you a contract. I'm like, okay, he said it, not me. I just love the guy. I love being on calls. The app is aligned with like something I need for my kids. And I was like, no, we need to do this. You need to do this. And he's like, we need to pay you. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's my business model. Right. So I love the way that you like summarize this. And, you know, for everybody, this is what I would say is that it has to be your blueprint. It's your house. You're the only one who's going to live in it. Right. So make sure that before you build a wall, you think through where that wall is in the house and do you want it there? Because you can knock out a wall. But the further and further you get into building that house, the more cost comes with knocking out that wall. If you frame a wall and you go, oh, I don't want that wall there, you can just rip some studs out. You finish the house and there's a wall through the middle of your living room. Now you got to rip the drywall out, pull out the insulation, move the plumbing, move the wires, move the wall. It can be redone. But the deeper and deeper you get into building something that you're not clear of or building somebody else's house, the more unhappy you're going to be inhabiting it, and the more and more it's going to cost you in order to bring it up to standard for what you want, which is what we would call alignment. And so I just think it's so important, because this is why I love Landon. Him and I look at business, life, alignment identically. I'm the same way. 2 different brain powers, but do the same thing with our clients and come in, but like it has to be yours. And ironically, the thing about entrepreneurship is most of the people we study, most of the books we read, most of the people that we idolize, they didn't get to that book by doing it everybody else's way. We read them, but we forget the process they went through to get there, which is they created it. They made a mold. They, you know, did whatever. And pick your mentor, but all of them, right? They disrupted, they did it differently. Even for me, just a last tangible example, I love coaching calls, love them, right? Especially when they're with like aligned clients. I also love my fitness, ironically. And I was like, I love being on these calls, but I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. to get my steps in. I'm not a Marine anymore. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually just going to take my calls on my treadmill. So I asked 2 of my clients, I was like, hey, you good if I walk on my treadmill when I do these calls, since we're recording them and we have notes? It's like, dude, yeah. Now, ironically, all of our calls, we're both walking. So they're getting their steps in fitness in. And they're like, I actually process better when I'm moving. I hate sitting behind the desk. And so now every time we get on a call once a week, we're both walking. But now they're pursuing their health goals. But who says you can't run a coaching call on a treadmill? Who says you can't take one in the sauna? Who says you can't do, you know, X, Y, Z? And so I think that the invitation here is like, if you don't like the dish that's getting served to you, what ingredient would you change and what do you want it to taste like? And then be willing to try it. So that's how I wanted to summarize all of that.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I don't have anything to add. I know we're coming up on time, but I think There's so many serendipitous things. And you gave the house analogy, and like this is coming from two people that burnt the house down and rebuilt because we had put in too many walls and it was we couldn't make those changes. But when you start to build it the way that you want it to be built, we often have a tendency of enriching the lives of the people around us unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
It can sound selfish, and to a degree it is. It is selfish to prioritize ourselves, but that's not bad because we
Mm-hmm.
are important. We are valuable. We are enough. And when we start to center ourselves, just like you said, you wanted to do the calls on the treadmill and now you're helping the other person get more active. You know, so many of those things, and you stand in alignment with what you're creating, often the impact to those around you is much greater and it's completely unintentional.
100%. 100%. 100%. We'll have to do this again. I mean, I don't know why we haven't done this up until this point. We'll have to do this again. I'm like, I talk to you anyways. We might as well just record these conversations. By the way, this is what it looks like when we have conversations anyways. It starts with a business question, then it leads into philosophy and the why and the all of it. And I love going back and forth. And so just real quick, selfishly, where is for anybody who resonates? I personally, just so everybody knows, I read every one of Landon's Substack posts. So I go and then it challenges my thinking and I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I should totally do that. But like, where is the best place for people to connect with you or consume you or get a hold of you?
The best place is my Substack. So landonpoburan.substack.com. That's where I'm most active. I dabble on Instagram just to kind of be present because so many people are there. But for the most part, I lean into writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll make sure that I link everything in the show notes, so that you have it, so that you can go find it. I love Substack because I don't have to be on Substack to read it. I just have it notify me, and then it sends me an email, and I read it in my inbox because I'd prefer to read it there. But yeah, I would highly recommend it, and most importantly, and I'm going to ask Landon an easy question. He listens to the podcast, so. But I think for everybody listening to this, like this is the invitation to change one thing, right? Maybe it's ask one question, maybe it's bring one thing into alignment, maybe it's to create a container for yourself of like, yeah, what would my day look like if I did end my call at 3, or when I ended my day I actually stayed off my phone until the next morning. That might mean, oh, I realized I like that, but I have to get up a half an hour earlier because I need that reflection time. Maybe that's like, hey, at the end of every day I need 30 minutes to capture all my thoughts, my fleeting notes, so I can leave the office where the office is. Right. And then the next morning I walk in. I know for me personally, I'm a pen and paper guy. So at the end of every day, in order for me to go be present as a dad, I literally write down what are the 5 open loops and I put them right on top of my desk. So the next thing tomorrow morning, the first thing I look at is those 5 and I feel tuned in. I feel complete. But to this whole conversation, it has to be your recipe, but you have to be willing to explore it. You have to be willing to play to your strengths. You have to be willing to subtract the things that drain your energy, but you got to try it. This is your home. And there are people like me and Landon and Kate and so many people on this podcast that I know that are so good at helping you build your home. But that starts with you understanding that it's your home to build, not another coach's, not another podcast, not another person's way. Like it has to be yours, or you're going to end up not liking the house that you live in. And so, my last question for you is, you know this question, but like assuming everybody forgot what we talked about, right? And that you could leave one thing with them to take away, like what would be your parting wisdom for them that like you want them to remember, you want them to resonate? What would your parting wisdom be?
You know, I think the one thing I would encourage and challenge everybody to do would be to put themselves at the top of their daily to-do list.
Mm, mm-hmm,
That can take
mm-hmm,
many shapes, many forms, but the best way to make progress on anything that we're working towards is we have to make ourselves a priority, whether
mm-hmm,
it's in life, our business, each and every day, working on a new project, growing our audience. We so often get caught trying to serve everybody else. And as soon as we make that shift and being like, I'm going to put me first, I think we can start to make incredible progress in everything. And like I was saying before, enrich the lives of those around us as well.
mm. I love it. I love it. There's no better fortune cookie to end this episode on. So I already did my summary for everybody listening. So whatever that is for you, make it true. If you need support, I'm just going to selfishly do this for Landon because he said his therapist said connect with people. Reach out and be like, "Can you connect, bro?" Shoot him a message. Connect, ask a question, consume. I think the last note that I'll add to everybody is that the loneliest place in entrepreneurship is stuck in your head, trying to find a way out. So whether that's a group, a community, a coach, a mentor, a coffee chat, a random conversation, it's a superpower to leverage community. So choose how you use it. Maybe it's Landon, maybe it's me, maybe it's a community, but do something to unlock the key to that mind to help change your perspective. And it's totally fine if you're building a house for the first time to ask somebody who's built 100 and be like, is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything I haven't thought through? Simple things, but just give yourself that gift. And so, most importantly, don't let this episode become shelf help. Brother, it was an honor to have you. Love the conversation. We'll do this with you all day. You're always like my Magellan over there with that beard. So, if you're listening, pick whatever wizard you love and associate Landon with that. It's grounding. It's there. And so, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, make sure you remember that relationships will always beat algorithms. And just like this episode added, the most important one is with yourself. So we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we are out.